Hey, what's up, everybody? True Boxing here. Thank you for coming back to get hit with the truth. So today, doing the what's next on Demetrius Andrade, the undefeated and reigning WBO middleweight champion of the world, following another successful title defense. He dominated Jason Quigley on Friday, November 19th. Dominated him with a second round knockout win as he retained his championship. So, that's what he should have done against a guy like Quigley. It was nice to see him go out and finish an opponent, But again, in all reality, Jason Quigley is one step above a nobody. His biggest win was against Shane Mosley Jr. And Shane Mosley isn't anything. He is all name and not really a legitimate, contender. So, that's what you should do against a guy who's a nobody or one step away from a nobody like a Quigley. And now the big question is, what's next for Demetrius Andrade following that victory? Well, we're going to run through the top 10, but there are some options, and maybe not a lot of them, but as always with Andrade, but he's really going to have no excuse to not have a big fight next, or a good, serious opponent next, I should say, if it's not a big name opponent. So let's run through the top 10 and see what possibly could be next for Demetrius Andrade. So we start with, number one, reigning IBF middleweight champion of the world, Triple G Gennady Golovkin. Well, I still think it's an outside possibility because Triple G is fighting Ryota Morata at the end of this month to unify the IBF and WBA titles. Now, if Triple G is not forced into a mandatory fight against Esquiva Falcao or Arislandi Lara, and Canelo's not there, then I think Triple G would be down. But Triple G has so many options. He liked the two mandatories. He could fight either one of those. Or, Jaime Mcguire might be a possibility. And if not, and he wants to fight Canelo, and Canelo wants to fight him, I just don't think this fight's going to happen. It's not to say it can't happen. I mean, both guys are tied with DAZN and Eddie Hearn, so it's a very possible, or a very easy fight to make. But Triple G's got to want it, and right now, he might be, after Morata and he unifies belts, he might have to make mandatories, or he would prefer to fight Canelo, maybe Jaime Mcguire. So, it's not, I just don't think it's going to happen, but I'm not saying that it's not. I wouldn't be completely surprised if it did. And it's not Triple G ducking, as he has mandatories if he wants to hold on to his belts. And, there's bigger fights if he doesn't have those mandatories to worry about. So, just got to wait and see. Number two is the undefeated WBC champion, Jamal Charlo. That might change. Andrade might move to number two ahead of Charlo after this year, by the end of the year. But Charlo doesn't want anything to do with Andrade. He's going to continue to fight nobodies, or unless he gets a Canelo fight. He's going to continue to fight nobodies and not risk himself and test himself. He's not going to fight Andrade. He's just not. I wish he would, but he won't. Number four is Arislandi Lara. Highly doubt this fight happens. They couldn't make the fight happen to unify belts at 154. Actually, Andrade's the one that backed out of that fight. They couldn't make it happen there, but Andrade is with DAZN and Matchroom, and Lara's with the PBC. Now, Lara might be directly in line to fight the winner of Morata and Triple G anyways. So he might not be where, this fight just probably not on the table either way. But yeah, I would like to see it. I just don't think it's going to happen. Number five, Jaime Mcguire, the undefeated former champion at 154. Well, the ball is in Mcguire's court. If he wants to fight Andrade, he can fight him because he's been number one contender all year in the WBO. So he can fight Andrade if he wants it, but what I'm reading is that he's likely going to try to become mandatory to Charlo's belt by fighting Sergey Derevyanchenko next. I also think Mcguire is still an option for I doubt Mcguire wants to step in against Andrade, even though I think he does stand a chance to beat him. And I would love to see the fight. I just don't think Mcguire is like, totally on board with an Andrade fight next. He might be ducking Andrade. You might be right about that one, but Derevyanchenko's a tough middleweight. Triple G, if he could get that fight, and Charlo's a bigger name than Andrade, so that might be the better route to go for Mcguire, and maybe he's not really ducking him. Maybe he just wants the bigger names. So our guys with styles that fit his style a little bit better. It doesn't mean you're ducking if the guy's got a bigger name and his style fits better than yours. Maybe you're just making a better option and going after more money. You can't fault a guy for that. So we'll see. Number 6 is Sergey Derevyanchenko. I know Derevyanchenko was in the mix to possibly get on. I know he's interested, but he has better options. I think he'd be interested if Mcguire passes on a mandatory title fight with him. Because I don't think Charlo's going to want to fight Derevyanchenko again. What's the point? So what I think could happen is, I believe if Mcguire, say, goes on to fight Triple G in May, and Derevyanchenko is not going to be in a final eliminator, one worth it, like a big name opponent, he might take the risk and show some balls and fight Andrade, but I don't think it's going to happen. I would like to see it, but I don't think it's going to happen. Now, number 7 is Ryota Morata, the WBA Super Champion. I don't see this one. Murata's fighting Triple G next. I think he's going to get beat by Triple G, and there really wouldn't be a point. Plus, Morata has ties with ESPN and Top Rank. They made the fight with Triple G because Triple G is such a big name, but I just don't think they'll come together after a loss to fight a guy like Andrade. I don't think the Morata camp would be interested in that. If he beats Triple G, I still don't think they'll be interested because they're likely going to have mandatories and bigger names to fight, possibly a Triple G rematch. Now, number 8 is Zanabek Amanakanouli, who, here's the guy's nickname, Kazakh Style. He wants this fight. He got a win on the Crawford-Porter undercard. I'll be doing his What's Next later today. He defeated former 2-time champion Hassan Nadam, dominated him, 8th round TKO, and then a day or two later, he made a formal request to the WBO to name him the mandatory challenger to fight Demetrius Andrade for the title. This is the first guy that has made an attempt like that, because Mcguire is number 1 and Amanakanouli is number 2. And he's undefeated, he's hungry, he wants a title shot. So this might not be a big name opponent for Andrade, like big name opponent, but it is a real test and challenge. And it's definitely one I think he should take if he cannot get a big fight with one of the other guys next. So I think it's very possible that Kazakh Style Amanakanouli gets the shot with Demetrius Andrade. And if Andrade doesn't take that fight when there's no other options, then he's ducking people too, and he needs to shut his fucking mouth. That's just the truth. Now, and rounding out the top 10 right now for me is Luis Arias, who's coming off the win over Jarrett Hurd. I don't see the point of this one. I mean, Arias, he got upset decision. He fights for the PBC. I just doubt that him and Andrade come together for the fight, that the two promotions come together. But even if they did, why would Andrade want to fight a guy like Arias unless it's just, hey, you beat Hurd? So I guess I could see it from that standpoint, but I don't see a point in him taking that fight right now. I think he's going to have other options that might be a little bit better. Like I said, like Amanakanouli, if the big names don't want to fight him. And I think he's probably going to take that fight. But I just doubt a fight with him is possible. And then Esquiva Falcao, I don't see that one happening just from the stance that Falcao's the mandatory to the IBF title right now. So he probably wouldn't be interested. But overall, I think the most likely option is that Andrade fights Amana Kanuli next, which is a good test for him because Amana Kanuli's the real deal. He knocked out Rob Brandt, the former champ, who's still a top 10 guy earlier this year. And then he stops Hassan Nadam, a former 2-time champ, something you're supposed to do against a guy like him. Stopped him in 8 rounds. So he's rolling right now, and he's hungry. And if Andrade can't get one of the big dogs, Triple G, not likely. Or one of the other guys, Jaime Mcguire, not likely. I don't think those guys want to fight him next. If he can't get him, fight Kazakh-style Amana Kanuli and make that fight because that's a real test. He's undefeated, and he would be a mandatory defense anyways, and you just leave the door open for if Triple G wants to fight you later in the year, or somebody on that level, or Mcguire, that you can make that optional defense, because you're not tied down to a mandatory. So we're gonna see what Andre's made of up next if the top guys still don't want to fight him. And Canelo, I highly doubt Canelo gives him the opportunity. So I could also see Andrade moving up, if Canelo gives up one of his belts, moving up to 168, if he gives up all the belts there, and fighting for the vacant belt there to avoid fighting a guy like Falcao. But we'll see. Andrade, it was a nice win against Jason Quigley, something you're supposed to do, but we're going to see if he's afraid or not in his next fight. And I really, really hope it's going to be against Kazakh-style Amana Kanuli, but we'll see what happens. All right, guys, that's it. That's the What's Next on Demetrius Andrade. I hope you enjoyed it. True Boxing, you've been hit with the truth.